Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me for this Terroir Talk, where we're meeting some of the top winemakers of South America and looking at some of the particular terroirs and exciting wines from there. This is all part of the run-up to the launch of the South America Wine Guide, which is coming out hopefully next month. And I'm about to invite in Santiago Deicas from Familia Deicas, and we'll see if he'll join me here. So he's going to be talking us through some really new cutting edge terroirs in Uruguay and a little bit about innovation happening in your family winery. Santi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining me in the middle of, the beginning of your harvest, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's the beginning right now. Well, which is kind of usual here in this country.
Oh.
some problems?
Yeah, that's okay, you're back.
Let me check the Wi-Fi just a moment.
Okay. Super. So we're going to be tasting 3 wines with Santiago. And what really interests me is the fact that Familia Deicas is a very historical winery, but you've explored kind of beyond the boundaries. So I really wanted to start, Santiago, if you can explain to us a bit about, because you're the 4th generation of the family, is that right?
Third.
You've got the 4th in process.
Yes, I have 2 in the 4th, and my sister has another baby as well.
Excellent. So tell me a bit about why you decided to explore beyond Canelones, because your family winery is very much based in the heart of the traditional region of Canelones and Montevideo. Why did you start looking at new terroirs and exploring beyond?
Well, actually, it was my father with part of the team of the winery when I was like 14, 15 years old, and we were traveling around the country because we knew that there was a big potential outside Canelones, especially because of the big diversity of soils that we have in our country. It's a small country, but you can have huge difference of soils in like 5 kilometers. You can go from stony terroirs to limestone and clay in actually 5 kilometers. So it's so wide, so big difference also in slope. And there's not huge difference in weather, but there's slight difference in 1 Celsius average of temperature during the whole year, which can have big impact in the vineyards. So you can have like 2-3 weeks of difference in time of harvest, so in between different terroirs. So actually we have big difference, and with my family we thought that there would be interesting to explore as part of our innovation. We are very innovation driven, and we were mainly focused in the 80s and the 90s in the process. You know, we changed the vines and then we changed the process, and then we realized that we needed to innovate and find new ways in different terroirs, and that's what we did.
Excellent, super. So I just pulled up a map there to kind of look at the main kind of regions. I think my face goes off the screen, but that doesn't matter. I'm still here. So if we look at the kind of pink zone is the main kind of production area of Canelones, and the kind of orange area there is where we're going to go with our first wine, which is San Jose, which is right next to kind of Canelones, right next to Montevideo, and a very traditional zone, a historic region too. But you found this brand new vineyard that had never been planted before. Can you tell me a bit about your exploration of finding Mahoma and why you wanted to make wines there?
Well, Mahoma, we've been working with producers at Mahoma for many years since Mahoma was planted. And then in 2010, we had the opportunity to buy a vineyard over there. And Mahoma is called Sierra de Mahoma. It's like hills of Mahoma. And the soil used to be flat stones, and when that hill was created, those stones became vertical. So this movement of stones made vertical schists that allow the roots to go very deep, because they can work their way through the stones and go very deep and find water there, and they can absorb all these nutrients, because when they go down they only see stones, and the roots, they like, the plant thinks, the plant feels that she needs to go deeper to find some water, and they makes very deep roots, and this stress the vineyard and produces very small quantity but very concentrated. And also all these stones are very rich in different kind of minerals, which are absorbed by the roots whenever it rains, and we can have very mineral flavors and with different kind of minerals.
Excellent. And this is mainly kind of a schist outcrop, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And how far down do these roots go?
Well, they can go 3, even 4 meters deep. It's really deep, because you have almost 2 meters with very little nutrients, very little like rich soil. So the roots, and is full of stones. So the capacity of a water reservoir is very little. So the roots need to go deeper to find some clay down in the bottom, or some lime, and there they can absorb some water.
Excellent. And I think what's super interesting about this site and how it kind of changes the profile of Tannat completely is that it's such a marked difference from the really rich kind of clay soils that you get and the profile of Tannat that you get in Canelones. We're going to taste the wine here. We've got the 2015 vintage.
Yes.
And can you talk me through the wine? Because I love this wine. It's actually one of my favorites in Uruguay. Whenever I get the chance to present it, I do, because I think it's so different to your kind of classic Tannat profile. Can you explain a bit about the wine and how it's different to your Canelones Tannat?
Well, this is, I think, is the most different of our Tannat that we have is this one, because all this concentration that we talk also helps to have the perfect balance when we harvest the grapes. Tannat has, in average, 1 more seed per grain than any other variety. So the tannins in the seeds are really important when we make wine. In other regions, it's very difficult to get perfect ripeness in the seed. At least nowadays that we are harvesting earlier, because we are keeping this freshness of flavors, it's very difficult to get this ripeness of the seed without over ripeness of flavors. In this terroir, we reach this ripeness of the seed very fast, and you can notice that the flavors are very fresh, are very mineral, and even some herbal flavors with not over ripeness, but this richness of the tannins is really high. These tannins are so ripe that we in the winery is the only Tannat that we have that we are able to macerate very long time of contact with the skin and the seeds. In all the other terroirs, we separate the skin and the seeds very early to avoid the tannins. In this case, the tannins are so great that we extract a lot, and you can see in the color, and you can feel it in the structure.
I mean, actually, it's terrible to start with this wine because it's definitely going to be the most powerful, and I'll probably have black teeth within an instant. But it's also the healthiest. And one of the things that everyone likes to say about Tannat and where its name kind of came from is the power of the tannins. But they're incredibly refined in this wine. I'm drinking it at 7 o'clock without any food, and it's beautiful. It's got this real kind of very chiseled profile, but it's very refined. The tannin structure in this Tannat. So tell us a bit more about working with Tannat, because this has been quite a kind of change in the last 10 years really with
Yeah.
winemakers and how they're approaching Tanat in Uruguay. And it's
Well,
definitely one of the hardest grape varieties to work with. It's not
yeah.
an easy
Well,
one to champion. How has the kind
it
of learning
depends.
curve been?
It depends. Let me also tell you another very important thing about this wine, that the flavors are also quite unique because it's so mineral that you can feel the iron in the soil, and the iron is present there as blood. It's
Mm.
not so sexy maybe to communicate. We never got the nerves to put it in the back label, but whenever I have the chance to explain it, and I suppose that people watching this are more wine geeks than usual people, they can understand that iron is in the hemoglobin. So you can feel the blood flavors like a piece of meat or blood. Whenever you have blood, it is that flavor that is very there in that wine, and is very distinctive of that region.
Absolutely. My notes always when I taste this wine, but when I tasted it earlier, it's blood and stone.
Yes, blood and
That
stone.
is my tasting note for this wine. For me, it's just that blood and stone, that real kind of like graphite stone, and that gorgeous kind of like raw meat blood. I love it.
And for me these are two kinds of different mineral flavors, because it's iron and stone. The stones have also mineral flavors, and this can also because of this minerality in the soil.
Mm.
Okay, so going back to Tanat, I think that we've been through many different stages with Tanat. Maybe when we started viticulture in the country, Tanat was very important because it is really well adapted. If you don't have all this new technology or this new knowledge of how to handle Tanat grows really well in this weather, and it gives naturally a wine that has good structure, good acidity, and it can resist our weather. If we have a lot of rains, Tanat can have more resistance than other varieties in our conditions. So it is like perfect match, and also really goes with our focus in eating meat, because we are one of the number one beef eaters in the world.
You
So
are
it's
the number
perfect.
one.
We are, yes. Sometimes we are number two, sometimes number one. And then we went to I call it a revolution, when we discovered that seeds are important, and when all these movements, I'm talking like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when all the wines were searching for sweetness, were searching for a lot of power, a lot of color, and were helped by this new oak. When this movement came, we went, I think we went like from one way to another, because it's very difficult to find sweetness in Tanat. We have a lot of acidity in Tanat naturally, and acidity was not very politically correct 20 years ago, and neither were tannins. We were looking for wines with a lot of color, with no acidity, with a high alcohol, and with no tannin sensations, or at least very
Mm.
soft in tannins. So in that search, I think that Tanat didn't didn't play really well, and sometimes we were proud of making the Tanat the more structured, difficult to drink, more macho Tanat in the world, more macho wine in the world. Like, if you drink this, you have to chew it, and you can drink like half a glass and go really starving for a piece of meat, because you cannot finish the glass. And that made us very, very proud, because there was like a few people that could enjoy this kind of wine, and if didn't you didn't belong to this, to this
Tanat Club.
this club. But then we were blessed by the new trend of balance, and ones that are true to the place, and ones that acidity became a good friend of our wine lovers, and wine critics, and people were talking about acidity in reds. It came from being the bad guy in the class to being like the bright side of the class. Also, tannins we have different approach as consumers to tannins. We understand that tannins are important in the wine, and there's different kind of tannins. And I think that these straight kind of tannins are very, very powerful and very. I think that people understand better. I don't know if tannin quality, but at least the astringency is not so. Is not like pushes away anymore. And then the fruit, the fresh fruit flavors, and all this balance, and the not so high alcohol. And this is what Uruguay can produce as a country. And also we can have really good tannins with this approach.
Excellent.
And we need to go to different places to have this diversity. And also we needed to change a lot the way we approach to tannat in the winery as well. Because before we were all following this recipe of making these big caps from Napa, or this big Bordeaux like, but powerful Bordeaux, or big wines. And we were very proud of very long macerations. And this was like the winemaker was telling you, Arnold, it has 60 days of maceration. We were very proud as winemakers. But then you have to drink that tannat. It's very difficult to drink a 2 weeks maceration tannat. Imagine like 7 weeks, 8 weeks maceration. It's crazy.
I mean, when I first went to Uruguay in 2009, I remember tasting the wines, and they were all so old. Like, you had to wait so long to be tasting anything in bottle. They were all at least 10 years old, whatever I was being shown at wineries, which was just for that reason, because they were so intense and tough that you had to wait for them to soften up with age.
Well, at that time, we were still having like this benchmark with Madiran Tannat from southern France, where Tannat comes from. And at that time, Madiran was also proud of making these very strong Tannats, and Tannat that has to age at least 6 to 7 years to be able to drink it. Now, even Madiran has changed a lot the approach. Yeah. But that was true. You needed to wait at least 5 years to being able to enjoy a high-end Tannat at that time.
So what's changed in the winemaking then? So, previously we were talking about long macerations. Can you catch us up to date? What's the kind of general winemaking trend at the moment for Tannat in Uruguay?
Well, we realized that Tannat has so much concentration in the skin where all the color is, and also there is a lot of tannins there. We have more tannins in the seed, but the skin has a big amount of tannins, enough in Tannat for the structure. So we focus on the skin and not in the seed when we have the macerations, and this makes us able to harvest early with seeds not so ripe but with freshness. And then in the winery we have short macerations, and we many times we finish the fermentations without the solids, without the skin and the seeds. Yes, and we have all these extractions where there's no alcohol, or there's this alcohol in the mast, and also when the seed is inside the grape in the tank. So all the extraction is done in the skin and not in the seed. And this gives wines that have at the beginning has not so great color stabilization. So they finish the fermentation with a lot of color, and then we lose color, which is something that used to make winemakers very nervous. Losing color is like losing quality. but Tannat has so much color at the beginning. So we start with a color like that, the glass that you have. That is the color of this is a super high color for any kind of wine. In that wine, you have a lot of stabilization, because we have seed that is the only Tannat that we have seeds, tannins. There you go. It's you cannot see if you put your finger.
No,
You
can't
cannot see
see.
half of the finger.
It's I mean, it's black in terms of how dark it is, but it's also got this incredibly vibrant red rim.
Well, that's because this is a super unique terroir. In all the other terroirs of the country, we cannot do these macerations. And what we do is we avoid the tannins from the seed. And what happens is that we don't have very stable color at the beginning. So because without the tannin from the seed, you're going to lose some color. But that's okay for us because we begin with a color of that glass and we end with a color of a glass of any good red wine, because tannin has so much color that half of that color is still super high color.
Absolutely, and it's much more important the way that it tastes than the color. And I think you know, people are definitely kind of, most wine consumers are very happy with that. Excellent. So tell me, this is 100% Tannat in the Mar de Piedras.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Because we're going to move on to a different terroir of Uruguay now, and also we're going to start looking at a Tannat blend. And blending with Tannat obviously is something that's been incredibly important historically in Uruguay. Can you talk us through some of the kind of traditional blending partners for Tannat?
Yes. Historically, the two varieties that have been really good partners with Tannat, especially in Uruguay, but also in Madiran, is Cabernet Franc in Madiran and in Uruguay, and Merlot. These are the two, like, especially Merlot in Uruguay is like the best friend for Tannat for many years. And whenever we go to planting a new vineyard, we plant Tannat and we plant Merlot. It's like always that, and then we see whatever we plant, what else. But we always want to have a little bit of Merlot to go side by side with the Tannat. And then it goes really well also with Cabernet Sauvignon, with Petit Verdot also. It's like these are the most typical blending. In nowadays, we are having a good results with Marcelin, which is a kind of unknown variety, but it's getting more and more trendy. And in the case of this wine, we went back to the ancient way of making blends. The Extremely Reserva Guasubira, this one, it has this. We went back as we used to make blends before, which is in the vineyard. This is all the varieties are planted separately, and we follow all the maturation and all the parameters are followed separately. But I really strongly believe that we have much more to gain if we can co-ferment, if we can harvest at the same time and ferment together different varieties, that if we do them by separately and then we blend it. It's huge, the difference, and we can have much more richness in flavors, in color, and also in textures.
Excellent. So this is a co-ferment then of 4 grape varieties, so Merlot, Tannat, Petit Verdot, and Viognier.
Yes.
Why do you add Viognier? Is that for color stabilization or?
Well, Viognier, it's definitely, it helps a lot with color stabilization. It's also a flavor fixer. It helps to fix more flavors, and it's part of the secret of some really good wines like Chateauneuf du Pape and all these great wines from Côte d'Ivoire. And we have been planting Viognier for many years, so we thought that this terroir would be really well for Viognier. So we're making a very few bottles of Viognier, but we planted here Viognier for the red. It's for the red, and it's for this to give it more complexity, and it helps to have more stabilization of color. Especially, they say for many years in France, and we have also the experience in Uruguay, that it helps to keeping more flavors in the wine, enhancing the flavors of the rest of the varieties.
And this is an incredibly flavorful wine. So I assume, you know, the Merlot is your flesh, the Tannat is your bones. And then there's just this touch of Petit Verdot. But for me, this is such a pretty wine. It's incredibly floral. It's really, really, for me, it's kind of aromatic and just incredibly bright, full of fresh red fruit. It's a really energetic wine, and a really special place. So we're talking. You've got to give me a proper class on how to pronounce La Valleja.
La Valleja.
La Valleja, okay. La Valleja. So there's only 8 hectares of vineyards in this entire region. Can you tell me a bit about the vineyard, because it's a really incredible place and totally unique and off the beaten track terroir for Uruguay.
Yes, well, this you can see in the picture, and this is the soil. But in the picture, you can see that it's in the middle of a hill, and it's in Uruguay we call it Sierra. It's our version of mountains, but it's really not so high as a mountain. But this hill, it has only mother rock. You can see this drawing that we did in the bottle. It wants to express this, that we don't have soil. You go directly to the mother rock, and it's planted directly into the rock. And the rock in this place is originated in this place. It's volcanic origin, but it haven't moved from there for millions and millions of years. And what usually happens with stony terroirs is that the stones comes from elsewhere. Either they come from alluvial movements or movements of the oceans, or movements of rivers. But the stones of this place, as it's the mother rock itself, it's been there for millions of years. That makes it quite unique, because it's the rocks of this actual place. And these rocks, it has so many rocks, and some of them are so big that when we started making the holes for the vineyard, we need to use a little bit of dynamite to crack in some big stones, because it was too different to plant. Then we took out 20 trucks of big stones in a very small vineyard. It's 2 hectares vineyard, and we took out many massive stones, and then we planted. I've sent you a picture what is the bottle in the stones, and maybe you can show that picture.
I don't have that picture. I'll upload it on the article afterwards.
Okay, don't worry. And these stones, when we were planting this vineyard, we knew that we would have to irrigate, which is kind of unusual in Uruguay. We irrigated. We also brought, as there is only stones, we brought soil from the valley to put in every single plant. We put a small piece of soil, so the roots of the small vine can start to grow. Then everything was going right, and the small plants were starting to go green. And this is a very arid zone. There's no crops because nothing grows there, only wild bushes. And there's a wild deer that's called guasubirá that started eating all these small plants. So we needed to protect this from the guasubirá. We developed a tent that we use it to protect to protect the grapes from the birds. But here we adapted and we put it to the soil, and we avoided the guasubirás eating these plants. Then the boars, like the wild pigs, they started damaging all these tents, and we had to put electric fence to protect from the boar. The fences are jumped by the wild deer, the guasubirá, but then we have the tent, and the guasubirá cannot eat the plant. This was all the first year.
This was before even making a wine.
Before 3 or 4 years before.
It was good.
Yes, no, it was really crazy. Then this place is in a hill full of stones. The first time we went with the truck, we started like moving, and we broke all the las ruedas, all
The
the wheels.
wheels.
Yes. And then we have, every time we go, we park in the downside and we have to go walking. It's like quite extreme. And you can understand why it's called extreme vineyard, because it's really extreme to plant there, extreme to harvest, extreme to keep everything perfect. And then everything went, yeah, well, we managed to have everything okay. And then the wine, the first time we produced this wine, I tasted the wine and I felt a flavor that I had never tasted before in a wine. And it's this kind of barley, cereals. I feel it like barley. I make also craft beer, and this barley, when you are cooking beer, that's also similar to any cereal, like in a cup of cereal. And
Well,
I can find when you have the glass without movement, and sometimes at the end of the, when you drink it at the end, you can find this flavor.
it's
And
an incredibly unique wine. I'm really glad that you persevered and carried on, because there was so many challenges and difficulties along the road. But I do think this is such an incredible wine and such a unique and totally different expression. And again, a very different side, a different face to Tanat, in this kind of incredible blend from a very different terroir. This is also the highest altitude vineyard in Uruguay, isn't it?
well, it is. I think it is, but it's not something that is quite important in Uruguay, because we're talking like 500, 600 meters. It makes slight changes in temperature. It does, but it's also very close to the River Plate, to the coast, because it's in the border with Canelones and Maldonado. It's like less than 20 kilometers from the coast. Actually, it's 17. So it has this big influence from the ocean. At the afternoon, you can have the impact of the ocean there.
Super. I think it's this little green spot at the top.
Maybe yes, it's when it. Yes, I've seen. Yes, the green line. Yes.
Yeah, the green line there.
The upper left side.
Exactly. So tell me a bit about the volcanic soil and how that impacts the wine.
Well, it impacts the wine in many ways. It gives a completely different minerality than the vertical schist that we tasted before. Here, I think that it expresses much more the fruitness of each variety. It has a different kind of floral flavors, and it explores also a lot of herbs with different kind of herbs, and the texture is totally different. Also, this is a co-fermentation. It's not only Tanat, it has Merlot, it has Petit Verdot, but even I have made some micro-vinification of 100% Tanat of this place, and it's very similar to this wine. It makes you produce some saliva.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I was going to say the same. It makes your mouth water. It's this is why I kind of describe it as a slightly more feminine wine. Like it really is very juicy and vibrant as a wine.
Yes.
What do you think is What do you think is the potential of Lavaleja? You're gonna have to do it again. Lavaleja.
Lavalleja.
What do you?
I didn't know what you were talking about.
I can't say it. What do you think is the potential of this region? Because there's so little planted, but obviously you had enormous hurdles in planting this vineyard. Do you think do you think we'll see it boom in the future as Maldonado has?
I don't think so, because it's so hard to plant there that even we are having great success with this wine, and we are finding it very, very difficult for ourselves to plant more. We already have a successful wine, and it is still making all this effort. It takes so long, and the roots take a long time to get deep and to have this balance. We are tasting the second harvest of this wine. It's actually the third. The first one was too little. The second one was still, from my point of view, a little bit unbalanced. And just this one, like we're talking about 7 years 8 years of waiting to have the wine that we're proud of, and it's too many. I don't think that many people are going to go to this region, and also there's more. It's more trendy and more sexy Maldonado, which is right next to it nowadays, and I think new projects are more to that side than this one. But it's a shame, because this has a very big potential of developing new places, because this place is Mother Rock, but if you go 1 kilometer to other place, it doesn't have this Mother Rock. Has another totally different soil. So you can go. We work with a vineyard that is not from ourselves, but it might be like 2 kilometers south of this place, and it is a riverside. It is a hill that goes to a river, and it has a lot of limestone, stony clay, but with a big amount of limestone, totally different soil, and gorgeous wines. So it has a big potential of discovery yet.
Super. I mean, for me, that's one of the most exciting things about Uruguay, as you mentioned, is this huge diversity of soil types. You've got quite a kind of similar climate around the country. And as you said, altitude doesn't really weigh into it as much. Proximity to the sea does, but certainly it's the soils that make it really interesting. And vineyards are so small, and productions are so small, that you can really taste those differences. And that's something that I really love as well, that artisanal nature. And I salute you for making this wine, as difficult and challenging as it is, because even though I imagine it, I'm sure it's not profitable as an adventure, I think the kind of the challenge that you've kind of put forward, and the kind of different face and exciting wine that you're making really kind of speaks for itself, and makes it so exciting for us to taste and kind of discover these really innovative and interesting projects happening. And you've got, within your kind of extreme vineyards line, you've got some really kind of weird and wacky wines going on. And I wanted to ask you about your suelo invertido as well, because I think that's another example of kind of innovation within Deicas, and something, that I haven't heard of anyone else in the world doing. So can you tell us a bit about that vineyard?
That wine, as well as this wine, has been really well received by the journalists nowadays. This one that we are talking right now, Tim Atkin gave us 95 points, and he said it is one of the best reds from Uruguay, and he's been in this place, and he's really keen and loving this place. And the suelo invertido that you are talking about, let me get a bottle. I have one bottle here.
You're going to have to serve us all a glass, Santiago. And we've got 2 questions which I'll ask as well. So if anyone has any questions that they want to send, please do. I've got them written down, ready to grill Santiago in a second.
I have it. This is the suelo invertido. We flip the soil. The vineyard used to be the vineyards that are side by side with this one are like this. But when we did this, the soil in this place, it has this fertile soil. This is in Progreso.
Canelones, perfect.
Yes. Clay and limestone is calcareous and clay. And we thought that it would be fun if we flipped the soil upside down, and we planted the vineyards straight into the limestone, and then we forced the roots to go very deep to find nutrients, and every drop of water absorbs a lot of calcareous, a lot of limestone, and it gives this very unique profile of wine. It's a tanat. It has flavors of pomelo and mango. It's crazy stuff.
Grapefruit is pomelo in English.
and grapefruit, yes, sorry. And Descorchado from Patricio Tapia gave us 97 points and selected as the best wine from Uruguay in the 2021 edition of his Descorchados magazine.
Excellent. And you've definitely worked for it, because none of these projects are easy. Flipping terroir on its head is a
It's
whole
kind of
other
crazy.
level. I think you're incredible, your team, for doing that. There were two questions that popped up in the interview. So one was about the barrels that you use for aging these wines.
Well, since 2018, we are using, in the extreme vineyard, we are using a clay amphora. We are avoiding the use of new oak. Sometimes we use very old oak because the quantity is very small, so we need to put it in small barrels. But it's in the amphora for 2 months, and then it goes or stainless steel or very old oak until we bottle.
Super.
Yes.
And then the other question was about your Tannat vines. They asked for the biotype. I assume they mean the clone that you've planted.
Sorry, the clone of Tannat?
The question was about the biotype, which I assume is the clone.
Yes. All these questions are done in the chat here?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the question.
It
I'm
popped up on
anything.
my side. I don't know how.
I'm not
Anyway.
seeing any. I must have blocked.
With your new vineyards, what Tannat clones are you planting?
No, traditional Tannats from here, from Uruguay. We have
Excellent.
really good viverists here in Uruguay. We use these clones.
Super. Perfect. So we're going to move on from Tannat, which is kind of ironic because we're actually going to move back to the most traditional and biggest Tannat region in Uruguay. But we're going to go to Canelones, and we're going to look at your orange wine.
Yes.
And this is super interesting because can you tell me a bit about the history of orange wine in Uruguay? Were there traditionally orange wines in Uruguay, or is this a completely new innovation?
No, when I started, I'm getting the wine from the fridge because I want it cold.
Right, it's cold enough in my shed.
Yes, I have it here. When I started with this project, I have never heard of orange wine in Uruguay. By the moment, there were like 3-4 winemakers also experimenting at the same time. And also Pablo Falabrino from Viñedo Los Vientos, he's been making this kind of wine for many years before, but he never called it orange, but he used to have some maceration. So it's kind of a new movement in Uruguay as well in many other countries. And in myself, I made a change when I visited the Martino in Chile that has these viejas tinajas that they make. Yes, they make this amazing orange in this old amphora style, and that wine changed my perception. Then I started looking and searching and tasting a few ones from Georgia. Now I have also tasted many more, but at the moment only a few. And then I started to make some experiments. And it's actually Carla that takes the wines that were imported in the UK that gave us the first, the Vinos Latinos, that gave us the first push for making more of this wine. Because we made a few only 400 bottles of orange in 2018. In Pro Wine 2019, in March, like in this moment, I couldn't go to Pro Wine, but Gonzalo, my expo manager, he went to the wine fair. He met Carla, and he said to Carla, I brought this crazy wine from Santiago. I have never tasted or given to taste to anybody because I'm scared of this. And Carla tasted, she loved it. She went, they find some friend, and they bought all the wine, and they called me that it was really good. And I had time. At this time, we made the wine with Viognier. In 2019, I didn't make with Viognier, and this was late in the harvest, and I had, and also it was rainy harvest. So Bionier was not super healthy, and these wines, they're also natural wines, so we don't use sulfites so it's difficult to work with grape that is not perfectly healthy. And then I went to see what grapes, white grapes do I have to make more orange wines, still as an experimentation. And I find that I had some Petit Manseng, which is a white grape that has a lot of concentration in sugar and in acids. And I thought this would be too much for the natural and the wild yeast to work with. And I had to soften this. So then I find that also a late harvest, not late harvest, but a grape that ripens late, that is also Gros Mansen, which is the totally opposite. Is low in sugar, low in acidity, kind of neutral in flavors. And I said, okay, let's mix these two to have a balance and this time I was thinking in the microorganism. Let's make the balance for the yeast, from the wild yeast, to have a chance of making a healthy fermentation. And this was all by chance. And I also experimented with 100% Petit Manseng and 100% Gros Manseng. But the very best beans, because this is made in small beans by hand, the best was the co-fermentation of the Petit Manseng and the Gros Manseng. And we aged it in neutral barrels, very old barrels, and half of the wine I aged in tank. And then I blend it, and that's it.
Excellent. And if there are any MW students listening or watching back, that is a perfect example of focusing on making natural wines and using the blend to deal with the acidity and alcohol and sugar. Fab. So I'm going to put up a photo, hopefully, of you making it. Here we go. So can you tell us a bit about like how long you macerate this, skin contact?
Well, it's as long as possible, because what I think my approach of natural wine is, we are having like tools. The tools that we use are kind of the same as 7,000 years ago, but the knowledge is quite different. It's really different, and we can analyze what's going on there. And as soon as I check that the volatility or any parameter is going up or is changing too fast, it is like it tells you in advance that the microorganisms might be having some party that you don't want to have. And for me, it's time to separate, because if not, we will need to have or to add sulfites or to have a wine with high volatility. That is not what I want.
Excellent.
And in practice, what happens in every vintage is that we finish the fermentation. It takes like 2 weeks. Then we can keep this for two more weeks. Then we separate the wine. We put it in barrel, and I put by hand some grapes, like it's like 20%, between 20 and 10% of the grapes, of the skin and the seeds. We can put it in the barrels and continue some longer aging. That it's difficult to express it in percentage, because it's like 6 or 7 more months, but with very little amount of skin. But this color is given in the first 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's got this beautiful kind of honeyed amber color. It's really pretty to look at, and also delicious. I love the aroma. I love orange wine in general. I think it's such a kind of really enjoyable foodie wine to drink, and goes so well with so many different foods. But this is, for me, like, this is all about kind of honey and apple pie. And it's just incredibly comforting and makes me want to have a nice you know, I mean, I actually want to eat chorizo with this. I can't imagine anything better than a nice greasy chorizo,
Yeah.
but but it's
The
a very
acidity, the
comforting wine.
acidity helps. The acidity
Yeah.
helps a lot with chorizo, with fats, and also another important for me, mo- even for me, even more important than the tannins in this wine is the cloudiness.
Hmm.
And this
Why?
is also because the cloudiness in the wine, in the white wine, it helps to keep the wine fresh. When we have the wine in tanks,
Mm.
regular wines, you can see there the
We can
amount
see
of.
how we can see it. It is. I mean, as it's not. It's quite hard with the light, but as
Well, maybe
unfiltered
in the
wines
glass.
go, it is a very cloudy wine.
And the cloudiness in the whites is given by dead yeast.
Mm.
And this dead yeast, we use it we've been using this for decades in the winery, producing normal wines, because when you have the tank, you keep the yeast in suspension and you keep the wine protected from oxidation. Because all these dead yeasts, they kidnap the oxygen before the oxygen can oxidize flavors or other parts. These are antioxidant agents. And this technique, we've been using it for many years in tanks, in all the wineries. And this is how we keep fresh Sauvignon Blanc for 8 months before we bottle. And I've been trying with my father for many years to bottle a wine, a Sauvignon Blanc, with all this cloudiness, and say, people, taste this. This is how the wine tastes in a tank. It's similar to a beer when it is just made, when you taste it from a tank. People love like the tap beer because it's more fresh. Well, in the wine, it kind of the same thing. When you taste wine with this cloudiness, is not being affected by oxygen. It's like when it is just being made. And the natural wine is, for me, a really good excuse for bottling this cloudiness. It's not unfiltered. It's not just unfiltered. It's, it's cloudy in purpose. O sea, we put the yeast in suspension and then we bottle. So it's much more than unfiltered. It's like we have a lot of yeast, dead yeast there, and this protects the wine from the oxidation in a very powerful way. This wine cannot change in 2 years. It changed really, really little. It's been a surprise for me. I was expecting more change. I'm also thinking of changing the screw cap. I love
I
screw
was going
cap.
to ask you about that.
I love screw cap, but I might change in the future because it's a wine that it's not designed for aging. So I want people to drink it fast.
Mm.
I don't want them to keep it, but it's a wine that I'm really wanting to see how it can age. So, well, we will see, but it's everything tells that it could age very long.
Excellent. I adore this wine, and I think it's really interesting the way that you're making beer and wine, and the way that it seems to kind of informed the other practice as well. What beers are you making at the moment?
Well, what I'm making, obviously, IPAs and New England IPAs, but also I'm making what we call it Uruguayan grape ale, which is the style. The style is called Italian grape ale because the Italian were the first to make this kind of style, and they registered the style as Italian grape ale. All these
Love
Italians
it.
are, yeah. So if I make a beer in Uruguay, I have to put it Italian grape ale as the style, and it's half beer, half wine. So
Oh,
we have
that's not media media.
no, 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 not at all. We ferment first the beer because it's easier for the yeast to ferment. Then we add mast, and then we add new yeast, and Belgian beer yeast, and they ferment the juice, the grape juice, and then I've been aging this more in a champenoise style. So it's been aging half of the production is been aging in bottle, and in the second fermentation in bottle is crazy, and half of the production is in barrels. So I'm waiting in barrels, and this is really, really fun. And also some sour beers with fruits, with different. I'm experimenting.
Excellent, as
With
always.
and something. Listen to this. Some beers with Brettanomyces as well.
Oh, well, Brett can be quite good in beer, though, can't it?
Yes, yes, it can. It took me like maybe 2 years or 3 years to soften with the breads, because when I was like 3 years ago seeing pictures of my friends, some beer guys in Brazil, adding in purpose bread to the beer. So it's these people are crazy, and now I'm doing the same thing in Uruguay.
Excellent. Well,
Far away from the winery, because
yeah, I was
my
about to
family
say, I
will
hope it's in a
kill me.
totally different area.
Yeah.
We're going to have to finish because otherwise the video won't save. But this has been an incredible talk, Santiago. Thank you so much. You're such an innovative and inspiring winemaker, and I can't wait to see what you get up to with the 2021 vintage. Best of luck with that.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers, and
And
hopefully see you soon.
thank you for all the work that you're doing for Uruguay and for the regions
No, thank you. It's my pleasure. I
of
love
South
Uruguay.
America.
Let me back in the country and I'll drink Bretty beer
Yeah.
with you. Ciao.
Well, see you soon.
Ciao. Gracias.
Ciao.